I guess I'd lost track of time. It was nearly midnight and the librarians were beginning to close up for the evening. I took my last swig of lukewarm coffee and dated my homework assignment. November 2nd, 1979, the year I turned 18. Maybe I was taking myself too seriously. I scanned the library lobby. Of the half a dozen students that spent their Friday night studying, I was certainly the youngest. It was only my first university semester. Shouldn't I be out in Nagasaki with friends? On a date? Maybe. But I wasn't. I was here, cramming my backpack with handwritten notes on classical literature and the art of poetry. I slung my bag over my shoulder and made my way towards the exit. To my right, a small movement caught my eye. It was a girl behind the library's book return desk. She appeared to be sorting a mound of books to be reshelved. I watched her only for a brief moment. Her short, quick movements suggested familiarity and efficiency. I assumed she had been working here for quite some time, and yet, after all the nights I'd spent here the past 2 months, this was the first time I'd seen her. Sensing my presence, she looked up so that her eyes met mine. It was then that I realized she was wearing a surgical mask. I felt a small pang of sympathy. Working a Friday night's closing shift while ill sounded like a death sentence. I gave her a quick nod and a smile, to which she just stared, blankly. My smile tightened into pursed lips as I waited for a response. Still nothing. Giving up, I kept my stride as I pushed through the doors, awkwardly, into the night. This wasn't my first uncomfortable encounter with a woman. And, considering I had about 7 semesters until graduation, I knew it wouldn't be the last. I didn't understand women, and they didn't seem to understand me. That's how it always had been, and perhaps that's how it always would be. But, for now, that didn't matter. Without the obligation of doting on a girl, I had time to study, and I had money to stock my dorm's fridge with decent beer. I'm not sure I could call myself happy, but I was content. I had no complaints. Now I imagined myself cracking open a beer when I got back to my dorm room. The thought was especially appealing. After my encounter with the librarian, I was a bit on edge and needed something to calm my nerves. Why was I so bothered? My pace began to quicken. I couldn't help it. I told myself it was because of the cold, or because I really wanted a beer, but I knew it wasn't either. I just needed to get away from here. I don't know why, but I didn't question it. I let myself run, and run, and run. My backpack clung to my shoulders as I finally approached the outer dormitory grounds. I forced myself to adopt a slower pace, trying not to look suspicious. I carried myself cautiously between buildings that were unlit and seemingly uninhabited. Nothing was stirring except the prickling of goosebumps on the nape of my neck. Something was off. Campus was never this quiet, especially on a Friday night. Normally I would enjoy the solitude, a break from the drunk and obnoxious crowds that Friday nights bred. But in that moment, I had never longed to see someone so terribly. Someone. Anyone. Any stranger would do. Please, I thought, to show me that I'm not alone here. When no one appeared, my composure went from uneasy to frantic as I hurried toward my building's front entrance. I rounded the corner and stopped. I was paralyzed. My heart became a solid fist of muscle that refused to unclench itself. Could it be? No, that could be anyone, right? I tried to convince myself otherwise, but I knew the truth. The street lamp illuminated her surgical mask, contrasting against the inky black air. She was standing there, in front of my door, as if she'd been waiting for me with the same expressionless stare. I slacked my jaw to speak. Before the words could escape my throat, her head cocked violently sideways.
Am I a pretty girl?
This sent me into shock and confusion. What was she talking about? Then it occurred to me, maybe she's just a stalker. You know, one of those girls that warps a passing gesture into an expression of love and then pursues you relentlessly. I then remembered the smile I gave her earlier. It all made sense now. The anxiousness I'd been feeling suddenly felt more like aggravation.
Am I a pretty girl?
She asked again, this time with a sense of urgency. She bent her neck further, with a hollow crack, her ear nearly sitting on her shoulder. Unease gripped me a second time. Instinct told me to leave. Even if she was just a stalker, there was something darker about her. Something more sinister. The last thing I wanted was to provoke her. Yes, I stuttered. Yes, you are. As soon as the words left my mouth, I wanted to eat them up again. Her vacant eyes were suddenly occupied with wild delight. I imagined her mouth curling upwards under her mask. She shifted her weight into a forward step. Leave, now, I told myself. Go, the back door. Without hesitation, I raced to the back of the building. I ripped at the door handle several times before realizing it was locked. Panic consumed me. I fumbled with my keys, trying desperately to find the right one. I squinted into my palm. Which one is it? Which one? My breathing grew shallow and convulsive. Finally, I'd found it. Here! I heaved, lifting my face into hers. My muscles tensed. I stood there, eye to eye with the stalker in the surgical mask. Except her mask was gone. The wind picked up the ends of her hair and flicked them against my cheek.
Am I still a pretty girl?
Her head cracked hard to the side. The smell of iron burned my nostrils. I fought for my eyes to adjust to the moonlight, trying to make out her face. Her eyes were the same wild ones I saw under the street lamp. But her mouth... oh my God. Someone's expecting me, I said. I have to go, I don't want to be late. As if coming out of a trance, the girl's expression softened.
Oh,
she said, apologetically.
Pardon me. Please, don't let me keep you.
Before I could respond, she masked her face and disappeared into the still empty campus. Inside, I cracked open the beer I'd promised myself. After a few rushed, deliberate glugs, I reached for the second can. The smell of iron still lingered in the air and was making me nauseous. I couldn't get the image out of my head. Her face, her mouth, sliced from corner to ear. That gaping, bloody smile. I thought I might have enough beer in the fridge to help me forget what I saw, but I quickly learned that I'd never have enough.